Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome. You have joined us on Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me is Sonia Shenoy. Sonia, good afternoon. It's a good day of trade, specifically because of the absence of any bad news coming in from the global markets or from the front of the currencies. So therefore, Nifty, Sensex, Midcap as well as Bank Nifty, all the key indices are showing good strength at this point. It's the ITC as well as ICIC Bank which is clearly taking the lead, and the big boy Kotak Mahindra Bank has made a comeback today as well. So that's on my radar, because take a look at the 7-day chart, and because of various stories and the RBI permission that had taken a dip in the last few trading sessions, so has made a comeback today in the trading session as well and is up and about. Federal Bank is one of the only big banks which is down in the red, but market breadth is looking strong at this point, Sonia.
It is. You'd want to be a bit careful. You're seeing a lot of beaten down stocks recover today, whether it's a Tata Motors or a Jet Airways. These stocks are recovering after huge 30-40% falls this year. So maybe some amount of short covering is also what you're seeing in the market. Don't rule that out and just be a bit cautious with some of the gainers. Of course, it is all in all a very good day. Some of these stocks like Mahindra and Mahindra have hit new record highs today after very optimistic commentary coming in from the management. But let's talk about what's happening across the globe then. Asian markets closed largely higher as trade war tensions have eased. The White House economic advisor Kudlow confirmed trade talks with China will resume later this month. The US will host the Chinese Vice Minister of Commerce in Washington on the 23rd of August. The European markets too have opened mixed. All right, well, the principal economic advisor Sanjeev Sanyal says that India's policies allow the rupee to find its own level. In an exclusive conversation with Lata Venkatesh, Sanyal asserted that the RBI has more than adequate reserves to deal with the falling rupee. Take a look.
Rupee is allowed to find its own level in the long to medium term. The Reserve Bank, however, has a long-held policy of controlling volatility, which it has more than adequate foreign exchange reserves to do in either direction. So just a few months ago, it was appreciating very strongly and it was accumulating foreign exchange reserves. And now that it is has been weakening, it has been controlling the volatility on the other side by using up the reserves. That's what the reserves are there for. And they are, doing exactly what they have done for now decades. It's a well-established policy. Now, as far as the economics of it is, remember, I'm sure you've heard of something called the impossible trinity.
Yes.
If you have a relatively open current account, then you have to opt for either the monetary policy or the exchange rate in the long to medium term. Now, because we have now an explicit monetary policy committee-based system, clearly we have opted for monetary policy. So now, other than obviously extreme situations where we may use capital controls, which we normally don't, and allowing for some use of foreign exchange reserves to temper volatility, we will now allow in this format explicitly allow the rupee to find its own level. Again, whether it's the economics or long-held practice, we are basically doing what is the appropriate thing to do.
Okay. No, is the government's view or your view that a correction in the exchange rate is enough to bring the trade deficit and the current account deficit under control? As I said,
the rupee will find its own level. Now, one important thing that is always forgotten in all of this is that when you're thinking about competitiveness, which I think is what you're hinting at, we have to think about not just the bilateral exchange rate vis-a-vis the dollar. The rupee has indeed been weakening against the dollar, but if you look at the last 5 years, it has been very, very solidly stable. In fact, has appreciated, in fact, against virtually every other major exchange rate. So whether it's the euro or the pound sterling or the yen or, in fact, even the Chinese yuan, against whom obviously we should, from a competitiveness perspective, keep a watch. Against all these currencies, we have been broadly stable.
All right. right, so that was a macro view coming in. Let's shift focus to some corporate action for the day and take a look at the stock. Mahindra and Mahindra, it hits record high today and is still hovering around those high levels of 960 rupees per share. Now, Pawan Goenka sounds extremely bullish and expects the commercial vehicle industry to grow 15% in FY19. Listen into the top snippets of that conversation.
There is a very good demand pull that's happening, and even before the announcement of axle capacity, the growth has been extremely good for the industry. And I think it's fair to say that on that basis, the industry should see a larger growth than what we had anticipated at the beginning of the year. So 15% will be a reasonable number to say. We have a fairly busy launch season coming up in UV segment and also in commercial vehicle segment. In UV, we have the launch of Marazzo just around the corner, which should happen before the end of September, as we had said earlier. And after that, we have one more UV launch happening before the festive season and one after the festive season.
Okay, so that's a really optimistic Pawan Goenka, not just about the tractor space, but about the commercial vehicle space as well. Moving on, another stock which has been hitting record highs is Bata. It's rallied 50% in the last 1 year, and the company also reported quite a good set of numbers. Earlier today, we spoke with Ram Kumar Gupta, the Director of Finance and CFO, and here's what he had to say about the company's cost-saving measures. He believes that from 16% margins currently, over the next few years, he could even get to 20%. Listen in.
We are taking lot of initiatives for margin improvement, like consolidation of suppliers, bulk contract, long-term agreement with our suppliers, raw material suppliers, as well as other suppliers. We are renegotiating our rentals with the existing landlords. Plus, we are optimizing our retail space.
All right, looking pretty good for the market. So now up almost 300 points on the Sensex. Look at that. And huge moves coming in individual stocks. So in the broader markets, names like Edelweiss Financials are just soaring, trying to get back to its earlier highs. Remember, these were erstwhile darlings of the market. Now they're picking up quite a bit of steam. Imami, Endurance. Endurance has been a big FII favorite. That one once again is up almost about 3-4%. So the going seems really good right now, and the market is very close once again to its all-time highs. But in the first step to turn around the ailing carrier, Jet Airways is looking to sublease its smaller aircrafts. Now this move is a part of its larger strategy to cut costs and consolidate operations, which is the need of the hour, as we all know. Utkarsh Chaturvedi joins in to give us more on that. Utkarsh, which airline is in talks with Jet Airways currently?
This is one of the first steps by Jet Airways to really turn around the business, to implement the cost-cutting measures. What we are picking up from our sources is that Jet Airways is in talks with TrueJet, which is one of the regional carriers, to sublease 7 of its ATR planes for a period of 5 years. What we're also picking up is that the talks are on for a wet lease. Now, what does the wet lease mean? The wet lease means that not only the plane, but the employees, that means the pilots, the crew, as well as all the maintenance and engineering of the planes will be taken care by Jet Airways. Now, this will serve two purposes for Jet Airways. First of all, if you remember, we had spoken about the fact that how 3 to 4 ATRs at this point of time are grounded because they were running on loss-making routes now. So now the company can really make use of those grounded planes, and it will get money out of it. In fact, subleases don't give you a lot of money, but at least it will save the cost the company is paying to keep them on ground. Secondly, when it comes to wet leases, you get a lot of money from maintenance and engineering, and also your employees who were fearing for layoffs can get better jobs and get new jobs for the period of 5 years. So this is the first step. As I said, the company is obviously looking to sell the other planes, which are the wide body planes the company has in the process of turnaround, but we will keep you posted on each and every step which Jet Airways takes, if it, for a turnaround process.
Oh yes, Utkarsh, and actually two-pronged strategy for Jet Airways at this trying and testing time. One is to raise funds, and on the other hand to cut costs wherever possible and to stop loss as well. In fact, Utkarsh also wrote to TrueJet and Jet Airways on his story, and TrueJet confirms CNBCTV18's news break and also says that they are in talks with Jet Airways for subleasing of the aircrafts, while Jet Airways tells CNBCTV18 that they continue to evaluate all the possible alternatives to to ensure optimum utilization of its fleet. Sonia.
Okay, so lots of stuff happening at Jet Airways in order to cut costs. But moving on, GMR Infra is set to list its airport arm on the bourses. So sources suggest that the valuation expectation is upwards of 25,000 crores. Nisha, what all are you picking up?
So, Sonia, this talk has been going on for a while, and the biggest stumbling block in the hurdle for GMR Infra was the entire dispute going on with the private equity investors which had invested in GMR Airports way back in 2011. Now they have settled the dispute, which we had earlier reported as well, and the settlement amount is 4,800 crore rupees. Now, this has put GMR Airports valuation close to about 21,000 crore rupees. So, this also, remember, gives us a benchmark for the IPO valuation. So now that the decks are cleared for this IPO to go through, what we are gathering from sources with direct knowledge is that GMR Infra will look at garnering a valuation for its airports business upwards of 25,000 crore rupees, depending on the investor response that it gets. And also remember that a large part of this fundraise will be utilized for also repaying debt. It has debt of about 21,000 crore rupees at the moment. And that's precisely the reason why the stock also spurred up when we broke the story about an hour back. And the stock is right now continuing with those gains as well, Sonia. So it's a big IPO, but you have to really see the markets because a lot really depends on the global markets as well.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But moving on, Grasim is the top nifty gainer today. Kevin Lee caught up with the managing director of Grasim, Dilip Gaur, as well as the group CFO, Sushil Agarwal, and began by asking him about fundraising and the growth plans. Here's an excerpt.
Grasim as a company, we have a surplus cash on our balance sheet. So we haven't really kind of diluted our equity for last many years. I don't recall Grasim has diluted equity for last 20 odd years. And all the expansion which we have done as a company in the past, and at least that's what we believe going forward for a reasonable period of time, we'll be able to do it out of our internal accruals. So currently the standalone level, if I talk about, there is over 7,500 crores capex which we have planned, which will get done over the next 2.5 years. We have been a robust free cash flow situation at a company level, and we believe that all our capex plan will be able to do it out of our internal accruals.
And Mr. Kaur, last question, what's the strategy for the rest of this year? You've had a solid start with these first quarter numbers. Now just keep the ship steady, or what else is planned?
Yeah, I think the outlook is pretty healthy going forward. So our volume demand is very strong. In fact, the entire textile value chain is doing well. The spinner margins are good. The government has imposed duty on the textile imports for the garments. So I believe there will be a lot of textile growth in the country, and that augurs well for the viscose fiber. And second, the viscose fiber is the fastest growing fiber right now, and we believe the Indian viscose demand will grow much faster than the global demand, and maybe double the rate of the normal textile. Last 4 years we have grown a double digit, and we expect to grow at the same rate.
All right, Grasim up over 4% as we speak right now. Let's shift focus to the retail sector now, and Reliance Retail has shown tremendous growth lately and has many plans to gain further scale as well. Going forward, our colleague also caught up, Mangalam Malu, he caught up with the CEO of Reliance Retail, Damodar Mal, and discussed the company's growth as well as the IPO plans of the company.
We thought it was the brick and mortar, then it became click, and now it looks like it's click and mortar. So omni-channel is the way to go?
In the post-Geo era, anybody shopping at a supermarket, the definition of customer is a human being and a smartphone, never separated.
Okay.
Now when we imagine customer as this entity, which is a human and a smartphone fused always, it opens up possibilities like the customer can ping my store and say, I'm going to come and shop half an hour later. The store knows things that she normally buys and can suggest those things to her. And she can say, yeah, I'm on the way, but yeah, just keep my trolley ready with these 6 items and then I will start shopping. I think we have only started imagining the possibilities that will unfold as we go along.
Does real estate limit the expansion of a supermarket?
No, there is frenzy when there is hyper expansion, demand supply mismatch when it happens. But these are also markets, and equilibrium happens. I think it's an equilibrium which has got established. People have made their mistakes, but on the whole, we are now.
So what do you think is a better model? Is it owning the land that you have your store on, or is it leasing the land that you have your store on?
I would say both, and we at Reliance Retail do a mix of these. When you lease, it gives you flexibility and speed. When you own, it gives you stability, but it anchors you to your mistakes, which are difficult to get out of.
What I'm trying to understand is, from Reliance's perspective, of course, yes, and from also the perspective of, say, something like a D-Mart and Future Retail. D-Mart is someone who's at one end of the extreme. The other one is Future Retail, which has most of its stores which are leased.
I don't find merit in being dogmatic about one way or the other.
Okay.
I think the catchment, the opportunity...
What's the mix in Reliance?
Markets holding on, but one counter just spotted HDFC Limited. That has reached pretty much the low point of the day and is a drag amongst the handful of companies which are a drag in the markets. Procter & Gamble, that has really not done well today and has dropped, trying to recover in the last few minutes of trade. Even Biocon has dropped, though still in the green. So keep an eye out for that. And Edelweiss Capital, that is one stock which is roaring in trade. So Biocon has dropped further, so that is something to be kept on our radar. All right, let's take it straight to one very important national news of the day, and the funeral of former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who passed away yesterday at the age of 93, will be held today in the evening at Smriti Sthal. Let's take it straight across to our colleague from CNN News 18, Arunima, who joins us with all the update. Arunima, tell us.
Yes, we are outside what will be called Smriti Bhavan from now on, Smriti Sthal. This is where other former prime ministers and presidents were cremated. This is their memorial. On my right is Karm Bhumi, that's of Shankar Dayal Sharma. Also resting here is Gyani Jail Singh, and now former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee will also be cremated here, and then from then on his memorial will be called Smriti Sthal. If you can see behind me, there is this queue of Navy personnel who are standing by. Ahead of them, there is also the military band of the Indian Navy, the Army and the Air Force personnel are also there. A ceremonial guard of honor will be given before the pyre is lit. This is a state funeral, a guard of honor, a proper send-off will be given to the former Prime Minister. And this place that I'm standing is about 5 to 6 kilometers from the BJP headquarters in Delhi, which is on the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Marg. And throughout the journey, when I was coming here, I could see giant-sized posters of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, some with his poems, some with his couplets. So all preparations have been made to ensure that this is a memorable send-off given to the former Prime Minister of India.
Okay, yes, truly an iconic leader, and of course it's a sad day. It's a sad day for everyone across the country, across the political spectrum as well. But the death toll in the Kerala floods rises to a staggering 167. State governments deploy additional resources in a bid to rescue all stranded people by tonight. CNN News 18's Radhika Ramaswamy joins in with a ground report.
I'm in a place called Enath in Pathanamthitta district. Pathanamthitta is one of the worst affected districts as far as the flooding in Kerala go. I will show you the situation in this small town called Enath. This entire stretch is completely submerged. This is the situation across this area. You can see how shops, restaurants and several other commercial establishments are underwater. Furniture floating about. This has been the situation for the last couple of days. In fact, Pathanamthitta is the worst affected as far as the flooding go. Several areas in Pathanamthitta is worst affected, be it Rani, be it Chenganur, Pandalam. So many of them completely underwater, where several teams are in fact doing rescue operations. The rescue operations here got completed yesterday. People have been evacuated. Hundreds of people from here have been evacuated. In fact, in several areas in Pathanamthitta district, rescue operations are still going on, and this is the situation in almost the entire district of Pathanamthitta. Even Pathanamthitta town is also as badly affected as that. Several thousands evacuated.